And he also is known by the same epitaphs as a lot of other guys. He is the light and the bringer of knowledge, and he is the truth, and also the savior, and the original Messiah um, figure that they had from over there. And strangely, it just looks like a spaceship that comes and lands on little wheels, so doesn't it? It looks like he sits in his little ring and he uses the ring to control it, and then so that's just odd. I mean, what does that have to do with anything? I mean, you look like around his body where he's standing, and I don't know if that's supposed to be more bird feathers or something is standing around there, but anyhow, the wing and the way that the wing flays out like that is supposed to be a symbolization of the way that the sun's rays cut down at angles, like through the clouds, things like that. So here's the lands that are, controlled and run by Ahura Mazda back in the day, and you can see that it runs from the far right side all the way from the Indus Valley and Hapla Hindu, all the way over to the left side where you see the squiggly rivers too, and that's the Tigris and Euphrates. Now, below that, at the bottom is the Persian Gulf, and there's an option there to call it the Egyptian Gulf or the Persian Gulf, and it's the Persian Gulf. And that whole peninsula that runs down through there, and above it here, the Desert of Media. That's what they talk about in the Bible. That's whenever they had to run for it and came over here, and they ran around through here. So a lot of the Bible was run around through what would be Desert of Media, what is a little bit upright of that to where you see Urva, Harayu to the right of it, back through Ragna to the left, up and through those mountains, and then there's passes that lead down through the mountains to the left over to the Tigris and Euphrates, and they really have to choose between one of two, really, the one above the R or the one that's down right over here. So yeah, they had a huge area. It's basically the whole area of Persia, the kings of Persia and things like that. And it's, oh, by the way, that's where Cyrus the Great comes from. And he's a big influence in this also. And this is an ancient depiction of what Ahura Mazda looks like. And there's about 6 or 8 depictions you see that look like this that are just a wall relief that they've done of him. And so I kind of questioned it and I looked it up. And the answer that I get is that he was Aryan, he was white. And that the people from Persia over there were a cross between whites and a nomadic people that lived there that were the Arabs. And so to this day, you see a lot of Arabs with blue eyes from that area, and they are the Aryans and the Aryan race that comes out of that. And so there are white people that are all up in Europe, but apparently the Grecian people, or the Caucasians of the Caucasus Mountains, had met up with them and done this. And the odd thing is that the Persian people themselves seem to be very much more, of course, you know, uh, Jewish looking. I wouldn't say that. That would probably be offensive to them. They're very much more Arabic. That's the correct word. Looking, and this is definitely not so Arabic. Another weird thing is they say his eyes are blue, that he has blue eyes, and that you can tell his beard is not as curly as all the other people's beards from around there. It doesn't seem, and the brow, the shape of the eyes, and things along that nature just leads one to believe that they're telling you the truth, that he is white. And so I look into this, and they say, well, he's the same God that's always been. It's not that he turned white, that this is Shamash. And this is the God that came from the Sumerians and stuff, that's their name for him. And wow, it starts blowing me away. So, and he's also Mithra. And they say that that's the same guy. That Zoroastrianism, of course, had a different language, and there's so many dialects over there, and so everybody came up with their own little name that had little meanings that quite often meant the same thing. So yeah. So we all know Aryans is that Nazi thing, which is, you know, a bad thing. He wanted to be Aryans. He wanted Aryans to take back over and stuff. And you hear about that and you wonder what they're talking about. And he was tired of all the mudbloods, if you would, that were all around. And he wanted to take back over the area that was his and around theirs to back what Germany used to be before, whenever it was a totally different nation. And I'm never going to say that I agreed with what he did or the ways about it and everything, but one thing for sure, he really wanted to get rid of the Jewish people. He said that they had ruined the German economy and had infiltrated them to the point that he couldn't get them out on his own. And that was one of the main causes for the big kickoff, is to cleanse that land of that problem that they had. Herodotus in 450 BC said the Medes, which is Medians and all the Persian people, were called anciently by all people Aryans. But then when Medea the Colchian came to them from Athens, they changed their name. Such is the account which they themselves give. So they changed their name at that point, and then the other people that were part of it, the Aryans, they were the father of the Aryans. They changed their name to Arab, and Ab and Abba is father, and so they took Aryan father and kind of threw it together and said Arab, and that's what they basically called themselves. Over here at the left, can you see that there's a necklace? It barely shows up in this shot, but it's a necklace that's excavated from Korkoraz from 1,000 years BC, and I'm sorry, 100 years BC. And if you'll look, it's finely woven gold, and it's got swastikas all over it and stuff. So that's how you attach the Aryans with this symbol, and that, believe it or not, is a sun symbol. It's kind of like the wheel goes round and round, and it's a burning wheel going around and around. Wheel in the sky, keep turning. The idea of the chariot wheel spinning, like the golden chariot you see here that pulls him to the sky every night. The same idea on Roman and stuff, where Romans and Greek mythology, where they have the guy pulling the sled or the chariot of fire across the sky every day. Saul, and then later you find in Romans they have Sol Invictus, and we find Sol Invictus is actually attached to Mithra, and of course Mithra is the same god as this. So all through here it's that same god. They're actually starting to worship Shamash, the sun god that grows the crops, that makes a lot of things happen, and he's the truth and the light. Here you can get a better look at it. The necklace that has the swastikas and stuff onto it, it's the same one. Interestingly, the bottom left picture is actually Iranian money. And the Iranian money actually has the old inscription seal that shows Shamash. But this is, of course, Ahura Mazda. And it is, of course, Mithra. And you can see that symbolism in the top right-hand corner, which almost directly comes off of the Journey album cover. And it looks very Egyptian too. You can get that same motif out of it. The Beshetun, Behistun inscription here in the middle left over there shows and tells you all about how he's taken over these people and stuff. And you can see that there are gods that are in that picture that are much bigger than the other guys. And in the top left-hand corner, the tomb of Darius the Great. And all of its inscriptions and stuff is where we get most of our knowledge about them. And then we started to find out a whole lot more after that. So you find Aryans also nowadays connected with these idiots. And so the Aryan has really become a bad word. It might as well be a cuss word now. There's these Aryans that has kind of ruined it, but it's basically just white race and white supremacy type of situation we're going on. Well, back then I think the white race was the more advanced of it all, but I think we all, passing around the information to everybody. We're not trying to do anything wrong. We're surely not, you know, trying to be the ruiners of everything. We seem to be going around trying to help everybody out, but that's another topic, I guess. But you can see this Aryan Brotherhood and this sad, sad picture here of Hitler that really doesn't even look correct. And I'm guessing this is supposed to be Satan or somebody over his shoulder and stuff. He says he's from Texas. That sucks. But his name is Birdman with a Y. And got his little swastika thing going on, and all of his little symbolism and everything in the neck. And one thing about these guys, they definitely put tattoos on their head, and in fact, they like to type the word skinhead on their head. And if they've ever been to jail, they put a mark on their eye for crying, and this guy's been to jail twice, apparently. So, yeah, it's Aryans. Hope you can see it well here, but the Aryan civilization is said to have come out of what is basically the Mesopotamian area, Caucasus Mountains, and that area where you see the yellow area in the very center of that, the dot. And from that, they spread out. Now, they're not showing you somebody going this way, they're just showing you go out because they already owned that area too. And they spread down through Persian Gulf, everywhere except for Egypt and Africa. Basically, they ran sideways over and all the way into India in the Indus Valley and up north, and caused the by breeding with the locals there, caused the Russians and Czech republics and things like that. And you can see as they swing over here and come over the top, right here where they're going out is, that's the Danube River that they're veering off right there. So that would be France, and it's where the French people come from. And then, of course, also Greece and Rome. And if that arrow keeps going, that becomes England. And so at one time, they owned all of this area and or lived peacefully in all this area here with their advanced cultures that they brought. This happened around 2000 BC, they believe. The Aryans migrated after the Great War, that Sargon the Great, and after that point, and the Aryans that were still here ended up migrating into India and around. And whenever they migrated around, they brought with them the ideas of chariots, bows, and arrows. And most everybody they ran into at that time were nomads, but they had been living in cities. And they were able to live as nomads, going from place to place, and then develop cities. So in the mountains of Armenia and up into the Aratta area, they're finding a lot of these runes, and some of them were found way back when. And this is some of the stuff that the Germans were looking for into the Aryan past. And when they really found out more about what they found out, then they decided to go after these Jews for some reason. And I'm kind of seeing the reason, I guess. The Aryan people here had run, and every place that the Jews went was on their land. And every place they went, if you'll remember, they said God showed up and said that it was going to be theirs. And then they were going to try to cause genocide and kill all the people off in the area. But yeah, well, even though there was little different tribes and cultures over there, it looks like that through that there was the Aryan was the main group that was there, excitingly. But looking at this depiction here, this is supposedly the first thoughts of chess and the game of chess, that this was their representation of it. What they're actually missing is one knight or a horseman on the left-hand side, I believe. But of the depiction of the right-hand side up there, guys, it goes over to here. But so what does it say that we're looking at here? Well, the left square thing that's just almost out of view is a stele, and it's telling you what's going on in the place and stuff. And then as we come to the right there, what they're saying that who this is Apollo, Mithras, Helios, Hermes. Yeah. And so the sun god. And then you have number 4 is Ahura Mazda. Okay. And Zeus is Ahura Mazda. And then 5 is Hercules / Ares. And then 6, what you have is Antiochus. And so now we're looking at the side over here, and this side, the eagle and the lion are the symbols of the two things that they carry and with them. And you see in the ancient Sumerians the eagle bird people and the wing thing, and you see the lion. And so this is associated with them. And go through their kings here and stuff. They have from the left, 7 is Apollo, Mithras, Helios, Hermes. They're saying that's all the same thing. So that's Mithras. And then 8 is Commagene. This is the female entity. And then 9 is Ahura Mazda, Zeus. 10 is Antiochus. And the number 11 there is Hercules, Ares. And then you have the 2, eagle and lion. And then that stick sticking up over there at the very end is a stele, a Parisian stele. It says Parisian on it. So it's where you get the idea of Paris too. And the Aryans that, are French. So the French come from these same people. All of the white people and the people that are of somewhat color that have a little Arab kind of looking thing into them but have blue eyes. And they don't all have to have blue eyes. It's like if you have a daughter and she doesn't have blue eyes, you're not an Aryan, throw her out the door. No. But they generally are going to have blue eyes in them and stuff. The green eyes come from Inanna, and blue eyes come from Aryans. And what's odd about it too is the only one I can find that's got listings of blue eyes is Enki and his offspring out of the ancient Sumerians. And so, although An, I believe, had blue eyes, and that would have been his father and the father of Enlil also. But Enlil doesn't. I've found where it said anything about the color of his eyes. I've seen mentions of where Inanna's eyes are green and her hair is fiery red, and I've seen other things that said her eyes were fiery red. But I think she actually is a redhead. I think she's an auburn redhead, fiery auburn redhead, and she has green eyes. So she's almost that Irish kind of look, and that may be where that comes from too. One early inscription says that they had dragon scales on themselves and fish scales on their mounts. And you're like, what is that supposed to mean? Well, you look at this scale mail that's going on here, and the odd thing is they equate it to the Dagons. And that, people nowadays, they say, oh, those Dagon fish people, they came out and there's their reptiles. It's not reptilian. They have this type of armor. People are running around in maybe like a diaper thing, and people show up with this type of armor that's already been made, and it just blows them away. It'd be like if you were a caveman and somebody showed up in this kind of armor. Very interestingly, you find this set of ruins. They're somewhat famous in Western Armenia, in the Aratta area and stuff. And this depiction over here, this guy that everybody sees, is supposed to be Nimrod, that he had taken over this area too, and that may make Nimrod white. And it might give the idea of where Nimrod came from, that he would have been half white and half, and nobody's sure, because the daughter of the king had slept with somebody, and they knew that the kid was going to get killed. Now, either they had the Baal worship and the firstborn sons were to be killed, or because she had a half-breed son and she's the princess, they were going to kill it anyhow. So she put him in a basket and floated him off. And of course, this later becomes the story of Moses, but he plagiarized by about 800 years. This is Western Armenia, and the place here is called Mount Nimrod. Mount Nimrod. And nobody puts that together, really, I guess, but Nimrod. And it's Nimur is a leopard, and this is also the Mountain of Leopards. And you go there and you go, I don't see any leopards. You go, you might see one sometime. There used to be a bunch. Yeah, I'm guessing all the hunters and all those guys trying to get their pelts and all that pretty much ran them out, and made it to where they're an endangered species now. But yeah, these rooms here, Nimrod, Armenia, Aratta. And here's DNA test responses from over in Europe. We're in a language that I can't read, but I read the American part of it, or the English part of it. And this is just like what we showed before, where these were the original places and that the people had been. And where earlier I showed you a thing about it. This is where they got the information from, and somebody had like fudged their own little thing rather than using this picture. But it shows you origination of where these people come from, and different tribes that are separated in slight different gene pools that are going on that all become the one gene pool that runs up north, that's slightly got a variation on a theme, a deviation on a theme. And there is a belief that their swing at 2000 BC all the way up around here and coming through and through this area here may have actually caused what we know of as the Trojan War. So these giant statues that we're finding up in the Armenian mountains and this false pyramid that's behind them, if you'll look, this rock buildup thing is said to be the origination of all the people that are around there. And there's finding now that a lot of these sites will date back to 12,000 years or more BC, and that the new place, Göbekli Tepe, which is up in here, has that same type of representation. Interestingly enough, the Sumerian gods say that they came from way up in through the Iranian mountains, straight up that way, and they had originally been in a place called Aratta, and that they moved down into the plains for the people to make the grain and do all that type of thing, and that Bad Tibera became the metal fabricating place, and that up here became the place of the people that apparently did some of the sculptures and some of the more finer artworks and things. There's a story about Inanna trying to get special artworks done by them, and later there's a problem with that exact group of people, but at the time they knew they were all the same. It's just where their original home was. And apparently, right near here somewhere was the mountain that they actually set um, Enki's ship on. And he would take the stag of the Abzu all the way up the Tigris and Euphrates and leave the water. And apparently, this thing could fly and go all the way up to um, Aratta, to his home base that he had, where he had a koi pond and all these little luxuries and stuff. They really thought of it being like the Olympus situation, and until everything goes wrong, because the same mountain is the mountain where we have the eagle and the serpent. And look at my one on the eagle and serpent. Just search it up there in the top if you want to after this, and you'll be able to see where that's how where everything goes wrong. That's where the eagle Enlil eats the kids of and kills them of Enki, and it starts the feud that runs things wrong. In this Aratta area, at least during this time here, it seems like they've changed their look a little bit. It's the next later look where they're wearing a little bit more and more armor, it seems, and maybe even more clothing too. So this was way back whenever they were coming out of the last ice age, by the way. Would have fit right during that time, 10,500 BC to 12,000. So they would be coming out of the last ice age there, and maybe even that younger Dryas event is centered around this, which I believe is where the meteor came, but that's a different story. But you can see this conehead effect that they've got going on with their conehead caps, and then that conehead cap runs all over the place. Also, the one in the center of the three there has that, what you'd call the Phrygian cap kind of effect. It's a little too big, but it's a kind of has that look. But then again, also it looks a lot like that Samoan and Polynesian hat that they have with the crest coming up onto it like that too. So yeah, and it's could be where they say they had the Dagon fish hats and everything. Well, this is not a Dagon fish hat. The fish hat has the mouth on it like the Pope's has, and that is where he got it from, is the Dagons. And so it's like encapsulating everything. He's making sure he grabs the Roman Catholics make sure they grab from everybody. Then again, who did they get it from but the Jews? So, and with these plated horses, these reptilian beings that they would get on and fight, that's supposedly how we perfected warfare, chivalry, and all the things that come about that. The very first true knights that you have come from this group of people here that You can see well shown. I'm not sure who the guy on the left is. It may be a sparring partner or something's going on here. But then there's a crier back in the background, or a squire, as you would say, somebody who's learning, and they are carrying the pole of the fish dragon thing, which definitely would throw a Dagon situation at them again too. And there you go with that fish scale thing and the whole thing that goes with it. Like they're kind of embracing it for a while, but you know, yeah. And so at one time, somewhere around 700 BC here, they owned a territory that delved way down into India and way up here into the north and west. And it looks a little sketchy up there, but they can find remnants of them, temples, things that just literally point to them. But also something interesting to note, they had also gotten into Egypt at the time down here at the bottom. And so they're definitely going down through there also. It also shows that they come all the way out into the Thai area, that they even had a stronghold for a good long time in the edge of it and up here in the top. And this would be Mongolia right here, people. So, and so they may have had a lot to do with the Mongols. I don't know if they had blue eyes mixed with them or not or anything. And if there's any blue-eyed Asians or Chinese, but if they are, it's generally because of that. Now, I did a special on Sumerians that are over there, and they have blue eyes in a lot of their statues, too. I'll show you a picture of how the blue eyes that come from the Sumerians, you know, they basically come from right here. These Sumerians end up spreading out through everywhere. And this ironically looks just like the map that they have of how the Cro-Magnon man spread out through the continents from out of Africa. In the out of Africa model, they really show that it starts right in here somewhere and it spreads both ways. Actually, three ways. And so one key thing about Aryans here is that they have blue eyes, and they're apparently the bloodline that carries the blue-eyed trait. And so you have a lot of English and things that are in there, and a lot of English are extremely white, and so you'll have that. But this family down here really thinks they're an Aryan family, and with their kids and everything, and they probably are. Although I don't know if they got dark blue eyes, or all it takes is somebody, one or two in their family, to have that look, I guess. But here we go, all the way from ancient Egypt. Here's a Sumerian statue. There's another Sumerian statue. This is a Grecian type statue here. Another ancient Egypt. All three of these are Egypt. This is Nefertiti or Hatshepsut. Look how white she looks when you think about it. You know, and even though you see these depictions here in this run, look how they have blue eyes. Now they're telling you these people have blue eyes, and then you can see in the Hindu faith how there are certain gods that have blue eyes. And there's even there's two gods. Whenever he acts like this, he's got blue eyes. When he acts like that, they're brown. And so it kind of shows you the difference of them. Even these oldest of sculptures of some guys that are in Sumeria. And another thing about these, they always had these big old eyes on them. Well, I find that the elliptoid is what they used for Inanna and her eyes, and they would say that Venus had this eye effect whenever it went and did it loop-the-loops. And look at the intricate inlay around the eye right here, how it's got the black encapsulating the white, and then a blue stone perfectly set inside of it. This is ancient, real ancient. Very nice showing thing. And you can see this picture here where this guy has taken and gone through the trouble and saying, well, look at all these swastika symbols too that are attached to this. They're all related to the sun, and that there's sun worship, especially in the Aryans, because the Aryans, you know, they come from Ahura Mazda and all the things. Well, that's where Apollo and all those type of things come from too. So here's a little good group, I guess, grabbing of it here to show that, you know, people think that that's an Aryan look there, blonde hair and blue eyes. That's what Hitler wanted, all the blonde hair and blue eyed people. Remember that? Down here, I don't know if you can catch the bottom of it here, a little blonde kid holding the Nazi symbol. But this is what an Aryan looks like right there. Now I know he's got a turban on his head and he's got his beard and red stuff thrown into it and everything, showing he's an elder. But hey, if that guy hadn't been working out in the sun all day, he'd actually look more like this guy here. And yeah, I can see that they're Persian. He's got a Persian look to him and everything. Yeah, well, these are Aryans. These are white people. These are white people that have lived in the desert for a long time that have a little bit of, Arabic people mixed in with them, and perhaps some of whatever ended up being the Jewish people. But here they show how they 1750 BC that from Hindu Kush the Aryans came down and went through India, and I'm not sure India was well populated at that time or what, but yeah. So here's one of the key things that Hitler found that drove him the way that it did for the Aryan thing that he was going after is the fact that swastikas, exactly like that, same swastikas, really very few of them turned the other way. In fact, the only ones we can find turned the other way are ones that are window effects, and when you go inside, they would be looking the correct way, right? But and that and a couple of tile works. But let's look through these from top left up here, coming across. India has an inlaid one. Russia has that crest. There's the German cross with it on there. USA has it for Crit Motor Company in Detroit, Michigan, and a few other symbols, but of course we won't have much of that here, will we? The Etruscans right next to that. This is an old medallion from over 2000 BC right here, and it's got it on there. In Iraq, that's a Sumerian bowl right there, and you can see the symbolism on the bottom of that, the fish, and there's the sun, and so on. Now let's go right here and just work our way over. This is American Indians. This is Hopewell Indians in America. The next one over is the Hittites, and it's a grid thing that they have that has them. Next over in that clay pot that's white is Peruvian, and it's got the exact same symbol on it. The next one over is the symbol from Tibet, and it's carved onto a human skull. The next one over is Navajos, and it's the sun and the rain god. And people are like, well, where's the sun? The sun's the big thing that encapsulates everything. Here's the different types of showers and storms. You can kind of see that, I guess. It's kind of hard to see on here a little bit. Poland has the same symbol. So you can imagine their horror whenever Hitler come rolling up with that on him. Now we look at the next row over, this one here, and we get to Thracian. And it has that double eye symbol, the double-headed eagle. And that's where that kind of comes from. And also that has that same look of the head part as the Agigi thing with the blue eyes that really is some Inanna Venus type statue. Next we have the Anglo-Saxons, and there's a brooch or a ring, I think it's a ring, that they have a brooch that looks just like it, and also a clasp that goes on somebody's cloak that looks exactly like it, all from Anglo-Saxon area. And there it is. And then you have Korea right here in a ceramic that is said to be, 1,500 years old or more. And the Anasazi people, ironically, have a bowl right here that looks just a lot like that bowl up here, but it's the Anasazi people from lower New Mexico area here in the United States that you may have seen before. They built special structures all up in the walls of caves and along canyon walls. They built their houses into canyon walls up off the floor and things like that. It was pretty neat. The Basque culture here even shows the same sun symbol, definitely marked as the sun, and it's dragon heads running in a circle on this one. But and also this symbol here is Armenia. And of course, where we were looking at some of them, they have that same symbol there. You can see it all the way at the end run here. Hopefully, let me raise it up just a little bit. You can see the Aztecs that are over here. There's the Aztecs. And they have that same iconography. Now, we won't have much of this because they burned it all up. But down in Ethiopia, and this is built into a church, and when you're standing inside the church, you're looking out at that. And I've seen a video where they went to that, and they go, this is a sign of something else. And he goes, we had it long before they tried to ruin our symbol. Right. Japan even has it on one of their old crests. It's just around the world. Look at this weird stuff. Here's the Anasazi thing where it very New Mexican art, and it's got it there going on. The Basques have it here as a propeller type setup, but they also have straight up swastikas. And here's one in Israel, actually in an Israel mosque. So, boy, didn't that come across wrong to them and everything. But yeah, definitely that has attachments. And, Hitler found that, Aryans had basically had this symbol. They were the ones that passed it around to everybody, and it looked like it was all over the world. So he came up with the conclusion that Aryans ruled the world at one time, and everybody else was screwing it all up. So we need to get rid of them. I have the total belief that there's a spice of life. I don't want to have potato soup. I want potato soup with bacon and chives and onions, some salt, some pepper. Gotta have some pepper. I want, I want something in there. How about a bean? Maybe we can get a bean mixed in there too with a little bit. How about a chunk of ham when you cook it? Right. And that's what makes the best stew. And the best stew is not American stew. The best stew is not Egyptian stew or African stew or anything. The best stew, there's two things here. The best stew is your mama's stew, and the best stew is world stew. America is the great melting pot of a stew. No, 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 no. Now the world has gotten smaller. The world is world stew. And it all tastes so good. Don't diss anything out of it. Get used to onions. And if it's not enough and everything, here's the ancient swastika symbol on all types of money. Each little pair left and right, it's a front and a back. There you can definitely see white guy, Augustinish kind of looking guy, pre-Caesar, definitely. And next to it, swastika. Then you see a guy with a beard. This is maybe a Germanic type coin, but no, the writing that goes around that's definitely like a Hebrew type of thing. It looks like or old. Man, I can't identify that. The way it looks just so wiggly and shitty. But it's somewhere from over there in Babylonian area. Next one over is a Babylonian coin with a lion on it. Next one down over here has almost a Sanskrit type of look to it here, but there's a swastika on it. There's an Aryan coin next to it there. I'm not sure where that comes from, but I can tell that's an Aryan person there, definitely like a king looking guy, and swastika with the sun, even, rays coming off of that. You can see the sun rays coming off of that. Next one over is a real elder coin from here. People have said this thing is over 2000 BC, and it definitely has the symbol onto it. All the way down at the bottom row over here, you can see that cutout coin. That's a Taiwanese coin, or one that would be like Angkor Wat area type thing that they had found in a temple, and it has the hourglass. It has the swastika of the sun up and down. The thing on the left, nobody's quite sure what that is, but the one on the right is an hourglass, so it's got time and sun and whatever the hell that thing is on the left-hand side to it. And just swastikas all the way abound. Look at this odd coin here. It's got a Mercury symbol onto it on that side. Now, I don't see the swastika on it. I don't see it on the other side either. But they've got this in this thing, so I guess they're taking the Mercury symbol to be more of a swastika there. And here again is a Greek coin like this, and it's got Pegasus on one side, and on the other side, bam, the sun. Well, it was the winged horses, remember, that flew over, that brought the chariot. And by the way, look at that Pegasus there, and see if you can't see it in the picture. Right below his belly there, he's got an ankh. Yeah? So swastikas are not a Hitler symbol. They're a symbol of the people of the world, and he abused the hell out of it from what he thought he learned from it. Not bad. Hitler bad, symbol good. Even blue-eyed people from Mesoamerica, and you think that with the Spaniard thing and stuff that there wouldn't be any white or blue-eyed influence at all, but notice that their gods actually have beard, and they can't grow a beard, but their gods had beards. And that'd be just the weirdest thing at all to everybody that's a population. Imagine that nobody in America or wherever you are right now can grow beards, but your God had one. How would you come up with the idea they had one? Because you can't really grow one. It's just odd. But This dates pre-Inca. This find that they just found now in a tomb burial. Check this out. Archaeologists say the ancient sea dates back to the Wari culture that flourished in Peru even before the Incas came to power. So there's your blue-eyed god thing. And what they're finding also is that's like a blondish brown hair right there still sticking out. And there's a lot of these reddish or auburn hair. The Sumerians, I know at least some of the Sumerians had an auburn type hair, and they tanned well. And now this blue-eyed statue, once they got it apart, it had blonde hair onto it, and they found a grave marker that showed how they dig way down and buried these people with these masks on, with these eyes. And they found remnants of these in a lot of these museums. And here's an ancient god named Moshe, and he was the pride of the people, and he got buried. This is Quetzalcoatl, and you see he's got a beard carving under the bottom of it. They added that on as an extra piece. He's got that beard. Well, this is somewhere around 700 AD, they're thinking, And I just want to note, look at this, the blonde mummies that are all below that they found here. And those are in the National Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology in Lima, Peru. This is where the Viracocha people were at. And you can see this blonde hair that they've got. All this is hair that they've had, and it's all blonde hair. Even this lady with this brownish hair, it's kind of like mine, where it's got a little brown as it gets older. But look at this blonde streak that's down here. And so you can tell that these people have blonde hair and this nice blonde hair up here and the braids that go down it. So just neat that they have it. And so here this Peruvian gods, now this one here has green eyes, but the rest of these have a blue eye, right? And you see people looking at things like this. Search for the bearded white gods of ancient Mexico. Where do they come from? Well, here's his burial site, by the way. Let me blow that back up. Here's his burial site, by the way. And this is him. And I guess one concubine and another turned the other way. Another one up here, another one up there. He's buried with people all around him and stuff. And they all had this, great wealth on him and stuff and everything. But here's his depiction of him and his mask that's on there. We can't look at his eyeballs anymore, but the people that made the masks said his eyes were blue. So that's pretty unique, and especially for an area of Mexican people, because they even drew Quetzalcoatl and these gods as being white with beards. So I think it's just odd. A research group here recently, or 10, 15 years ago, headed by Mecca and Meyer, attested to the presence of Caucasian people in northern Africa that says it goes up to the Paleolithic times, but then you don't see them there anymore. They spread northward and you won't find them in Africa anymore. And that's the reason that you see just African people coming after that. And then, so how we easily get the out of Africa idea out of it, but there's Caucasian people down there too. Truly, if we all came from there, then all colored people are from there. But in the real study of this, it looks like the Anunnaki gods came down and they had everybody all together at one time, and they were crossbreeding and things too somewhat, but they loved the cultures that each one started to develop, especially whenever they separated the races after the flood, and each race came up with their own little thing, and they kind of helped to form that, and they liked it. And one of the ones they really liked was Ananas. They said one of the tablets, and she was of the Indus Valley, so they really liked the India people and how they had really turned it into something different and everything. And they didn't want everybody la 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 la. They loved the different culture of the humans that they created. Research comes to light, and it shows that Badarians, which were Aryans, are a good representative of what the common ancestor to all later pre-dynastic and dynastic Egyptian peoples would be like. This was by Dr. J.D. Irish back in 2006. And they definitely have somewhat of an Aryan appearance to them. And they're finding mummies that have blonde hair and reddish hair in Egyptians' tombs and stuff like crazy as they're looking through this, and especially the oldest ones. And you see Egyptians generally having black hair most of the time. Well, truth be known, like this guy right here, they shaved their heads and then they made wigs. And quite often the wig was made out of tails of giraffes or tails of horse mane, and things like that. So it says here there's an Aberdarian affiliation to North Africans, not sub-Saharan samples. So that puts these Badarianish Nubian type people as actually being white in the first place. Look at this information that's popping out. And these blue-eyed people, these are funerary things that are buried with these ancient Egyptians that have blonde and light brown hair. And this right here is versions of that. You think that it's nobody you've ever heard of. There's Hatshepsut, Amenhotep II, Tutmosis, Ramses. There's that one that they famously called Ginger because they don't know who she is. She has the reddish hair, almost like Inanna. Whereas, so you look down here, they do have the blue eyes, but most of them are shown with black hair. But can you tell that right here she's got a short cropping of hair, and then she's got a wig thing stuck on top? I don't know if you can see that in the video. That's just a wig cap. That's a wig cap. Here's the way they look without one. Here she looks without one. Here he looks without one. There's without one. So they don't really have them on. But so here's this man here, and you take this guy, and that's the way he looks dead now, and he's got reddish brown hair on him. Tutmosis has a blondish, sandy blonde hair. Amenhotep does too. Hatshepsut has blonde, straight up hair. Thuya has straight up blonde up hair. Yuya has straight blonde up hair. And these are the oldest ones right here that come out of it, where the religion of all of the whole people started from, and the Phoenicians, and a lot of people grabbed from the Egyptians. Sorry, black people. I mean, you're trying to get in on it, and just be proud of who and what you are and how you've helped build the other countries and stuff, and what you are now as a people. Because genetic analysis now reveals a close relationship with Middle Easterners and Egyptians to the people that are actually in Europe and the UK, the whites that are all spread about through there. In fact, King Tut has like a 92%, his DNA is the same, 92% of it is the same as the people that are in Europe and in London area, by the way. So your commoners that are there. And ironically, the people that are in Egypt itself only give off 6 to 8%. So the people that we look at as being Egyptians, well, they took over. Somebody told you that a long time ago. They don't know how to build that. Nobody that's there now knew how the people that were ancients that built it. Well, now we're finding out the ancients, these blonde and blue-eyed mummies and stuff and everything, were actually white people. And somehow I'm white. Somehow my white people forgot all this shit. The genetic study shows how Egypt actually is related to the Middle Easterners and not Africans, and that Middle Easterners are actually related to Europeans, but the Europeans are closer related to the Egyptians than these people are. Gotten in some of these ancient tombs here, and whenever they get in there, and now they've been able to extract some DNA out of ones that are really kept well, like this one right here, and they're finding that the later people, like the people that are right now standing over it, and the people with the turbans on their heads that are digging it, are closer related to black people than King Tut was, and all the pharaohs with the blonde hair, and they're closer related actually to more European and UK people, and that they were actually white or the descendants of and made it and everything. They're related to each other. They can go a direct line from King Tut to people over in London, and you can't do it to the guys that are sitting here in the picture. They're finding evidence all over, but there's this place called El Fayoum that's right off the edge of the Nile here that you see is blown up slightly, and it actually is where there was a white settlement and blue-eyed people, and slightly different pottery and things and stuff that really looks like the ancient Egyptian pottery. That's how they're matching it up. In- Interestingly enough, right here, there's an oasis that they found, and it's called Ba Araya Oasis. Ba Araya. Area. Aryans. Ba. Ba is a mountain, I believe. And so the Aryan Mountain Oasis, right there that they found, it's still the name that they have for it today, but they found white people's remnants there too. And now we're getting deep into Africa more than we thought we would. We're almost on the edge of Namibia Desert, which is just under the earth and to the left of it. They've taken the DNA of 90 mummies, even including this one that seems to have a auburn to dark brown hair. But you couldn't say that that looked like black people's hair at all. I don't think they had straightener and stuff back in those days. But all of these mummies, including this one right here, have genetic markers. They use the female mitochondrial DNA. That's how they did the same one and say we all come from people that came out of Africa. But when they find that skeleton, what they're saying now is they're not saying that skeleton's a black person that they found that everybody comes from. It could be a white, and it could be the blacks came from the whites, and the whites didn't come from the blacks. It could be a lot of different things. And whatever it is should just be acceptable. It doesn't matter. We all need our flavor in that stew. It's not just good pepper stew. It's not just good salt stew. It needs taters. It needs some meat, some bacon, and some onions, and maybe kind of bean. And yeah, I'm getting hungry, Anna. So out of 3 or 4 of these, they were actually able to get the straight up DNA, not just the one that they can grab the mitochondrial out of, but the better form of DNA. And they're matching that up now and saying that that definitely comes with the people from the Levant area. And so there's your starting of your Aryans, it looks, because the Aryans were the ones that ruled the Levant. And the first thought that a lot of people had on this is perhaps that the ancient Greeks, whatever Alexander the Great and people like that coming through, had caused the declamation of their blood and everything. But they're looking at mummies before that even ever happened, and it's showing that not to be true. And of course, somebody pointed out when somebody tried to come up with the idea that some of these actually have beards on them, like the one in the far bottom left-hand corner actually has a beard on him, and it's not common for there to be beards on most of these Egyptians, so he had a partial beard on him. And maybe they just all shaved well. We're not sure. But you don't see them pictured with beards, and you think if they could grow them, they'd have them on there. I always thought that showed that there's also a connection to ancient American Indians, but I don't know if they have tried to make that connection yet at this point. But Greeks don't have a blonde haired effect very much. In fact, what they do, they believe that they got from the Aryans later. So this seems to still put it in the Egyptian equals Aryan thing. And they compare their DNA to the sub-Saharan African people and Sudanese and even the Ethiopians. And they find that they have very little genetic ties with the Egyptian. In fact, a lot less that the Egyptians have with them than the Egyptians have with the Aryan thing. And by looking at it deeper, it almost looks like that it would have to be the Aryan breeding with the mix that became Egyptians, and the Aryans leaving out from there. It's their thesis right now on that, but it's a new thing that they were the ones that had started and perhaps even built the pyramids. And here's a mixed map that shows you where the graphically are finding all these guys at. And out of the markers that they have, where all the dots are on the top board there, the yellow ones to red show how much they really think that it's attached to it, lesser and more shared drift. And they're getting key markers in there, and even the triangles that are on there that are pretty much locking it up to where you could almost pull ancestry off of it, by the way. And the yellower they get, I guess it's better on there. When you go to the bottom, the red admixture z-score is showing you the farther off they get, -15, all these type of things. And you see how there's so many reds in the bottom. I don't know if you can quite pull that or pick it up, but there are some yellows mixed in there too, and mainly in two little sub areas there that they found, and in one tribe right in the center of Africa. And so what they're gleaning from this information is that the Egyptians are much more of the Northern Europeans than they are the Africans. And they're saying that the marker that they see that even comes in from Africa is a late marker. In other words, this happened in the last 1,000, 1,500 years, and the mummies that they're looking at are the top markers, and the top markers say there ain't none down here, it's all up top, and that people in Europe actually are related to the first mummies of Egypt. One more good example of this, you read graphs different ways, things like that, but what we're showing in this one here, what they're showing here is that this little center right here is the Egyptian thing, and they're trying to show you who's close and who's far away. And by looking at the grid that's over here on the right, which I guess you can't quite see all of it, but the grid that's over here on the right, it shows you that the red are the Bedouins and Canary Island people in the red triangles, and the red star are Druze people, and a solid red star would be a Libyan Jew. And so what we're seeing over here is that the Libyan Jews are way the hell far away. The other people in the open stars are here, but what we're seeing real close to that are these little circles and the yellow dots. Well, the circles are Albarian, they're Dinka, they are also the Iranian people, and the yellows that are there are Jordanian and Palestinian people generally, and they have a lot of Iranian in them. And you do see to this day even people over there that do have blue eyes and such, and this is where we're pulling that out of. But you can see over here to the left the way this thing pulls out and stretches, and you'd want to, this would be good, and anything out in here would be far off, and anything way up here, like the Jews would say, nah, not so much. They go on to say that so it looks like Egyptians and then the Middle East or Sumerians or Babylonian people actually have about a 72% grab, and it even goes up if you pick out certain European populations up into Europe and things. That sub-Saharan Africans only pull 16%, and that's actually later in the DNA that they would pull off something more like 4 back in the day. Way back at the start of the pharaohs and stuff is where we're looking at. Whenever you're comparing the same thing, like when these statues are from, not a modern look.